6 months had passed since Ji-un became empress. The Crystal Palace hummed with new life. Where once silence reigned, now voices filled the halls. Scientists, healers, and diplomats from 100 worlds worked side by side. Ji-un stood before a massive star map, her transformed eyes seeing patterns invisible to others. Her assistant Hyejin, newly arrived from Earth, watched with amazement. "You can really see all that?" Hyejin asked. Ji-un nodded. "The crown changed how I perceive space. I can see the scars where the plague touched. They're healing, but slowly." She pointed to a cluster of stars. "This system lost all its leaders. They need teachers, healers, historians to rebuild their knowledge." "And you're sending humans?" Hyejin sounded surprised. "Humans and Kitharans together. We're learning from each other." The throne room doors opened. General Jae-won entered with a delegation of human scientists led by Na-young. "Your Majesty," Na-young bowed awkwardly. "We've decoded more of the original message from the alien structure." Ji-un turned from the star map. After her transformation, she could understand parts of the message directly, but human scientists were filling in the gaps. "What have you found?" she asked. Na-young activated a hologram. The message wasn't a warning or a weapon. It was an invitation. Someone wanted humanity to find it and come to specific coordinates. "Where?" Ji-un asked. "Beyond the galactic rim. A place no one has explored." Ji-un felt a pull in her mind. Since the transformation, she sometimes sensed things she couldn't explain. Now she felt drawn to those coordinates like iron to a magnet. "We should send a ship," Jae-won suggested. "No," Ji-un said. "I need to go myself." The room erupted in protests. Do-hyun, now Ji-un's reluctant but loyal advisor, spoke loudest. "Your Majesty, you cannot abandon your throne. The Empire needs you here." Ji-un smiled. Do-hyun had changed in 6 months. Fear had given way to respect. "The Empire needs answers," she replied. "About the plague, about the message, about why someone reached out to humanity. I can feel it calling me." She had learned to trust these feelings. They had helped her heal diplomatic crises, find lost colonies, predict stellar phenomena. The crown had given her more than anyone understood. "Then I'm coming with you," Yoonji declared. The young healer had become Ji-un's closest friend and personal physician. "And I," added Jae-won. "The Imperial Guard goes where the Empress goes." Ji-un looked around the room at beings who had once been strangers, enemies even. Now they were family. "Very well. We leave in 3 days." The journey to the coordinates took 2 weeks. Ji-un's flagship, renamed Bridge of Understanding, carried representatives from Earth and Kytheria as they traveled beyond known space. Ji-un felt the calling grow stronger. On the final day they found it. A structure hung in the void, identical to the one the Kytherans had found centuries ago. But this one was active, pulsing with gentle light. "It's beautiful," whispered Hyejin. "And alive," Ji-un added. She could sense consciousness within the structure, ancient, patient, waiting. They docked carefully. Ji-un led a small team inside. The corridors were sized for beings like humans, not the taller Kytherans. "It was built for us," Na-young realized. "For humans specifically." They reached a central chamber where light pooled like water. In the center stood a figure that looked human but wasn't. Its skin shifted with colors. Its eyes held the depth of eternity. "Welcome," it said in perfect Earth standard. "We have waited long for you to find both messages." Ji-un stepped forward. "Who are you? Why did you create the plague?" The being smiled sadly. "We didn't create a plague. We sent a gift, a message of evolution, but it was found by the wrong species first." It gestured and images filled the air. Ji-un saw an ancient race seeding messages across the galaxy, each designed for a specific young species. "We are gardeners," the being explained. "We plant seeds of advancement for races ready to join the galactic community. The message for humanity would have given you abilities like what you now possess, but gradually, safely. But the Kitharans found it first. Jiyun understood. Yes, their minds couldn't process it correctly. The gift became poison. We grieved for the suffering we caused. Why didn't you stop it? Yunji demanded. We cannot interfere directly, but we could plant the solution in the message itself, the crown of silence, and we could wait for humanity to mature enough to use it. Ji-un felt pieces clicking into place. The crown wasn't Kitharan technology. No. We encoded it in the message, knowing the Kitharans would build it without understanding it. A cure waiting for human hands. The being approached Ji-un. You succeeded beyond our hopes. Not only did you cure the plague, you became a bridge between species. This was the true gift, not power, but understanding. What happens now? Ji-un asked. Now you choose. We offer humanity full membership in the galactic community, technologies, knowledge, connections to other mature species. But the choice is yours. Ji-un looked at her companions, human and Kitharan, standing together. She thought of the empire she now ruled, already transforming through cooperation. We accept, she said, but not just for humanity. For all species ready to grow beyond their limits. The being smiled. Spoken like a true empress. The bridge you have built between human and Kitharan is just the beginning. Light enveloped them. Knowledge flowed into Ji-un's transformed mind. Star routes to other civilizations. Technologies that seemed like magic. Wisdom accumulated over eons. When they returned to Kytheria, Ji-un called a gathering of all species in the empire. Standing before thousands in the great assembly, wearing the mended crown of silence, she spoke. We stand at a threshold, not as humans or Kitharans or any single race, but as citizens of the galaxy. The plague taught us that our greatest strength comes from our differences. She held up the crown, now reformed and glowing softly. This crown was meant to bring species together. It will no longer be a symbol of Kitharan rule, but of galactic unity. Any being with the courage to serve others may wear it. Do-hyun stepped forward. And will you continue as Empress? Ji-un smiled. Until the galaxy no longer needs me. But already I see future leaders rising. Human creativity combined with Kitharan wisdom. New voices bringing new solutions. She looked out at the assembly. The plague is ended. The silence is broken. Now we speak with one voice across the stars, celebrating all that makes us different and all that makes us one. As the twin suns set through the crystal walls, their light caught the crown and scattered into 1,000 colors, each color different, each beautiful, each part of a greater whole. In the years that followed, the Plague Age became known as the Silence Before the Song, and Ji-un's reign marked the beginning of the Harmonic Era, when the galaxy learned that its greatest strength lay not in similarity, but in the beautiful chaos of diversity united in purpose. The human nurse who had traveled so far to heal a dying king had become something greater. Not just an empress, but a symbol of what beings could achieve when they reached across the void to help one another. And in the crystal towers of Kytheria, new voices sang with the old, creating melodies never heard before, but always meant to be. Light poured from Ji-un like water from a broken dam. The crown of silence burned on her head, sending waves of energy through the council chamber. Every noble shielded their eyes from the brightness. It's working, Yunji shouted over the humming. Power. The plague readings are dropping across all infected worlds. But King Yunho watched Ji-un with growing concern. Blood trickled from her nose. Her hands shook violently. The human healer was paying a terrible price. Stop, he called to her. That's enough. Ji-un couldn't hear him. Inside her mind, she battled the plague across 1,000 worlds. She felt each infected brain, each dying neural pathway. The crown gave her the power to heal them all, but it was burning through her own mind like acid. Memories began to fade. She forgot her apartment on Earth. She forgot her first day of medical school. She forgot her mother's face. Pull her back, General Jae-won shouted. She's dying. Tai Yang shook his ancient head. We cannot. The crown must complete its work, or the plague will return stronger than before. King Yunho struggled to his feet. The temporary treatment Ji-un had given him was wearing off. His voice grew weaker with each word. "There must be another way," he said. Then he saw the terrible truth in Taeyang's eyes. The old keeper knew something he hadn't shared. "Tell me," the king commanded. Taeyang bowed his head. "The crown can work two ways, Your Majesty. It can use one mind to cure the plague across the galaxy. Or what? Or it can cure one person completely, forever. But not both." The king understood immediately. Ji-un could save him or save the galaxy. Not both. Without hesitation, he walked toward Ji-un. Each step was agony as the plague reasserted itself in his body. His voice had already failed again. But his mind was clear. He reached Ji-un and placed his hand on her shoulder. Through the crown's connection, his thoughts touched hers. "Save them," he told her silently. "Save them all." Ji-un's eyes opened, glazed with pain. She saw the king beside her, his face peaceful despite his suffering. She understood his sacrifice. "No," she tried to say, but the crown's power overwhelmed her voice. The king smiled and stepped back. With his last strength, he wrote on his tablet, "A ruler's duty is to his people. You understand this better than any Kithaerin. That is why you must rule after me." Du-hyun rose in fury. "This is treason. A human cannot rule Kithaeria." But his protests were drowned out by reports flooding in from across the galaxy. On every infected world, the plague was retreating. Billions of minds were clearing. Voices long silent began to speak again. Ji-un felt each cure like a small explosion in her brain. The crown was using her neural patterns as a template, teaching every infected mind how to think around the plague. But the effort was destroying her. She fell to her knees. The crown blazed brighter. Across the galaxy, the last traces of the plague dissolved like shadows before dawn. Then, with a sound like shattering glass, the crown of silence split in two. The pieces fell from Ji-un's head, their work complete. She collapsed. Yoonji rushed to her side, medical scanners flashing. "She's alive," Yoonji reported. "But her neural patterns are completely changed. I've never seen anything like this." "King." Yunho dropped his tablet. Without Ji-un's treatment, the plague consumed him rapidly. He fell beside her, his breathing shallow. Jae-won knelt between them. "Your Majesty, what are your orders?" The king couldn't speak or write, but with tremendous effort he removed the royal seal from his neck, the ancient symbol of Kithaerin authority. He pressed it into Ji-un's hand and closed her fingers around it. His meaning was clear to everyone in the chamber. "No," Do-hyun raged. "I will not accept this." "You have no choice," Jae-won said firmly. "The king has chosen his heir." King Yunho looked at Ji-un one last time. In her unconscious face, he saw the future of his empire. Different, strange, but full of hope. With a final breath, the last Kithaerin king died. The chamber fell silent except for the hum of medical equipment around Ji-un. She lay still, caught between life and death. "Her brain activity is unlike anything in our records," Yoonji reported. "The crown has rewritten her neural structure. She's no longer fully human, but not Kithaerin either. She's something new." Hours passed. Healers worked tirelessly to stabilize Ji-un. News of the king's death spread through the palace, but so did word of the plague's defeat. The galaxy was saved, but at terrible cost. Du-hyun gathered supporters in the shadows. "We cannot let an alien rule us," he whispered. "When she wakes, if she wakes, we must act." But Jae-won had posted guards around the medical chamber. The general had made his choice. He would protect the king's heir. On the third day, Ji-un opened her eyes. Everything looked different. She could see energy patterns in the air, hear thoughts like distant music. The crown had transformed her into something beyond human or Kithaerin. "How do you feel?" Hyunji asked gently. Ji-un tried to speak, but the words came out wrong. Her mind worked in new patterns now. She had to concentrate to form simple sentences. "Different," she managed. Everything is different. She saw the royal seal in her hand and remembered the king's final moment. Tears ran down her cheeks. "He's gone?" she asked. Yunji nodded sadly. "You saved the galaxy, but the plague took him. He chose this. He wanted you to know that." Ji-un struggled to sit up. Her body felt strange, as if it belonged to someone else. She could sense every mind in the palace, feel their emotions like colors in the air. "The crown," she said. "It changed me." "Yes," Taeyang said, entering the chamber. "You are now something unique in the galaxy. Part human, part something else. The ancestors built better than they knew." "I can feel them all," Ji-un whispered. "Every mind on every world. The plague is gone, but I can still sense where it was. Like scars in space." Do-hyun appeared in the doorway with armed supporters. "This has gone far enough. Stand aside. Cytherea needs a proper ruler." Jaewon moved to block him, but Ji-un raised her hand. With her new senses, she could see the fear behind Do-hyun's anger. Fear of change. Fear of the unknown. "You're afraid," she said simply. Her words carried power now. The crown had given her more than just the ability to cure the plague. She could see into hearts, understand minds in ways no one else could. "I don't want to rule," she continued. "But the king gave me his trust. The galaxy needs healing, not just from the plague, but from the fear that created it." She stood swaying slightly. The royal seal pulsed in her hand. "I need your help," she said to Do-hyun. "All of you. I'm not Cytherea, but I'm not human anymore either. I'm something new. Maybe that's what the galaxy needs right now." Do-hyun hesitated. In her transformed state, Ji-un radiated authority without trying. The crown had marked her as surely as any coronation. Slowly, uncertainly, Do-hyun knelt. His supporters followed. "What are your orders, Your Majesty?" he asked. Ji-un looked around the chamber at the faces of those who had opposed her, supported her, doubted her, believed in her. She thought of the king who had given everything for his people. She thought of the countless worlds now free from the plague. "First, we honor King Yunho," she said. "Then we begin the real work. The plague is gone, but the damage remains. We have a galaxy to rebuild." As the suns rose over Cytherea, setting the crystal towers ablaze with light, the age of the human empress began. The council chamber was a sphere of living crystal that floated in the center of the palace. Hundreds of nobles sat in circles that rose toward the ceiling. Their silver eyes followed Ji-un and King Yunho as they entered. "Impossible," whispered Lord Do-hyun, the most powerful noble. "The plague has taken his voice. This must be trickery." King Yunho stood tall despite his weakness. "No trickery, my lords. The human healer has found a way to slow the plague." His clear voice echoed through the chamber. The nobles gasped and murmured among themselves. "How?" demanded Lady Hyojin. "Our greatest minds have failed for generations." Ji-un stepped forward. "Human brains work differently from yours. We can create neural pathways that the plague cannot follow easily." "Different," sneered Do-hyun. "You mean inferior. Humans are young in the galaxy. What could you know that we don't?" "Sometimes being different is an advantage," Ji-un replied calmly. "Your minds are more advanced, but they all work the same way. The plague was designed to attack that specific pattern." "Designed?" Do-hyun stood up. "You speak blasphemy. The plague is a curse from the gods." "No," said King Yunho. "It's time you knew the truth. The plague is our own creation." The chamber erupted in shocked voices. The king raised his hand for silence. "Long ago," he continued, "our ancestors found something in the void between galaxies, a structure made of living metal, containing information in biological form. They brought it here to study." Ji-un listened carefully. This matched what the king had told her earlier, but now he was revealing more details. The structure contained a message, the king said, but not words or images. It was written in DNA itself. Our scientists tried to decode it by merging it with Cytherean biology. And it became the plague, Ji-un finished. The king nodded. The message was not meant for minds like ours. When we tried to read it, it became corrupted, dangerous. Why didn't they destroy it? Asked General Jaewon. They tried, but by then it had already spread. So they created the Crown of Silence as a failsafe. An ancient keeper named Tae-yang shuffled forward. He was so old that his blue skin had faded to gray. I guard the crown, he wheezed. For 500 years I have waited for someone who could wear it. Bring it here, commanded the king. Tae-yang bowed and left. The nobles whispered nervously. Du-hyun's eyes narrowed. You cannot mean to let this human touch our most sacred artifact. The crown was designed for a human mind, the king explained. Or rather, for a mind unlike ours. The ancestors saw that someday, beings with parallel processing abilities would arrive. This is madness, Do-hyun protested. Give our crown to an alien? To save our people? Yes, the king said firmly. Tae-yang returned carrying a crystal box. Inside lay a circlet of living metal that seemed to shift and flow like liquid mercury. Strange symbols moved across its surface. Ji-un felt drawn to it. The crown seemed to pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat. Beautiful, she whispered. And deadly, Tae-yang warned. 12 Kitharans have tried to wear it. All died instantly. King Yoon-ho turned to Ji-un. The crown will connect to your neural patterns. It will use your mind as a transmitter to broadcast the cure across the galaxy. But what? Ji-un asked. The power required may burn out your neural pathways. You could lose your memory, your personality, even your life. The chamber fell silent. Everyone stared at Ji-un. She thought of Earth, so far away. She thought of her family, her friends, her life as a simple nurse. Then she thought of the billions dying across the galaxy. If I don't try, what happens? She asked. The plague spreads until every advanced civilization falls, the king said sadly. Worlds will go silent. Knowledge will be lost. The galaxy will enter a dark age. Ji-un took a deep breath. Then I have to try. No, shouted Do-hyun. This is a trick. The human wants to steal our power. Several nobles stood with him, hands moving to hidden weapons. General Jaewon stepped between them and Ji-un. Anyone who threatens the healer threatens the king's life. Stand down. You would side with the alien? Do-hyun snarled. I side with hope, Jaewon replied. The standoff stretched taut. Then Eunji spoke up from the back of the chamber. I've worked with the human healer, she said. She could have left when the guards came. She could have saved herself. Instead, she stood between them and our king. That is not the act of someone seeking power. Other healers nodded in agreement. Slowly, the hostile nobles lowered their hands. King Yoon-ho gestured to the crown. The choice is yours, Ji-un. I cannot command this. Ji-un approached the crystal box. The crown's metal surface reflected her face, but the reflection seemed different somehow. Older, wiser, changed. How does it work? She asked. Tae-yang explained. Place it on your head. It will bond with your neural patterns. Once connected, you must visualize the cure spreading across space. The crown will amplify your thoughts into reality. That sounds impossible, Ji-un said. Much about the ancestors' technology seems impossible, the king replied. Yet it works. Ji-un reached for the crown. The metal felt warm, alive. As she lifted it, symbols flared brighter. Do-hyun made one last protest. This is wrong. The crown belongs to Kytheria. The crown belongs to whoever can use it, the king said. Our pride has cost us enough. Ji-un held the crown above her head. She thought of all the medical training that said this was insane. Technology couldn't turn thoughts into reality. But then 6 months ago, she wouldn't have believed she'd be standing in an alien palace trying to save a galactic empire. If this kills me, she said to the king, promise me you'll find another human to try. If this kills you, the king replied softly, I will ensure humanity knows their daughter died a hero. Ji-yoon nodded and slowly lowered the crown onto her head. The moment it touched her skin, the world exploded into light and sensation. The crown bonded with her neural pathways, sending tendrils of energy through her brain. She felt her consciousness expand, touching the edges of something vast and ancient. Images flooded her mind. She saw the ancestors finding the message in deep space. She saw their excitement turn to horror as the plague began. She saw them building the crown in desperation, encoding it with hopes for a future they would never see. And underneath it all, she sensed the original message, not corrupted but misunderstood. It was trying to change Kithaeron minds because it was meant for different minds altogether. Human minds. The realization struck her like lightning. The message wasn't random. Someone, somewhere, had sent it specifically for humanity to find. The Kithaerons had intercepted it by accident. The crown pulsed with power. Ji-yoon felt it waiting for her command. She could sense the plague across thousands of worlds, a dark web of infected minds. But she also felt the strain on her own brain. The crown was already burning new pathways through her thoughts. She had minutes at most before the damage became permanent. "Now," whispered Taeyang, "visualize the cure, quickly." Ji-yoon closed her eyes and imagined healing light spreading across the galaxy, washing away the plague's darkness. The crown amplified her visualization, turning thought into reality. In the council chamber, everyone watched in awe as Ji-yoon glowed with inner light. The crown on her head blazed like a star, and across the galaxy, the plague began to retreat. Ji-yoon worked through the night. The crystal chamber glowed with soft light as she studied medical data on floating screens. King Yoon-ho slept fitfully on his bed, his breathing shallow and uneven. "You should rest," Yoonji said. The young Kithaeron, healer, had stayed to help. "Exhaustion will not help the king. On Earth we have a saying," Ji-eun replied, not looking up from her work. "The night is darkest before the dawn. I feel close to understanding something." She pointed to a brain scan. "Look at these patterns. The plague doesn't attack randomly. It targets specific neural pathways, always in the same order." "We know this," Yoonji said tiredly. "First it takes speech, then memory, then life." "But why?" Ji-eun asked. "Why that order? What if the plague isn't trying to kill? What if it's trying to communicate?" Yoonji's silver eyes widened. "Communicate? That's madness." "Is it?" Ji-eun moved to another screen. "On Earth, we have viruses that change our behavior to spread themselves. What if this plague is trying to tell us something?" The king stirred, his eyes opened, focusing on Ji-eun with surprising clarity. He reached for his tablet and wrote, "You understand. The plague has purpose." Ji-eun moved to his bedside. "Your Majesty, you know something about this. Please, tell me." The king's hand shook as he wrote, "Long ago, my ancestors found something in deep space. Something ancient. They brought it home to study." "What was it?" Ji-eun asked. "A message, but not in words. In biology. They tried to decode it, but the message became a plague." Subin entered the chamber, followed by several guards. His face was stern. "Human healer, the council demands a report. 3 more systems have gone silent. They want to know if you can save the king." "I'm making progress," Ji-eun said. "But I need more time." "Time is what we don't have," Subin snapped. "If you cannot help, we must try other methods." "What other methods?" Ji-eun asked. Subin hesitated. "There are those who believe the king's death might stop the plague, that his royal blood is somehow connected to its spread." The guard stepped forward. Ji-eun moved protectively in front of the king's bed. "You would kill your own ruler?" she asked, shocked. "To save billions?" "Yes," Subin said coldly. "Step aside, human." "No." The word hung in the air. Ji-eun stood firm, though the guards towered over her. "You dare defy the royal council?" Subin demanded. "I defy anyone who gives up on a patient," Ji-eun replied. "On Earth, we have an oath. First, do no harm. I will not let you hurt him. The Yao. King wrote frantically on his tablet and held it up. She stays. That is my command. Subin read the message and bowed stiffly. As you wish, Your Majesty. But know that the council grows desperate. If she fails. He left the threat unfinished and departed with the guards. Yunji touched Ji-Eun's arm. That was brave and foolish. Sometimes they're the same thing, Ji-Eun said. She turned back to the king. Now tell me about the crown of silence. The king wrote slowly, his strength fading. The crown was created as a safeguard. If the message ever became dangerous, the crown could stop it, but it requires a specific neural pattern to activate. A pattern no Kithaeron possesses. A human pattern? Ji-Eun guessed. The king nodded weakly. Ji-Eun felt pieces clicking together in her mind. Your ancestors found an alien message. They tried to understand it, but it became a plague. They made the crown to stop it, but designed it for a neural pattern that didn't exist in your species. Why? They saw the future, the king wrote. They knew that someday beings with different minds would come, beings who could understand what they could not. Humans, Ji-Eun whispered. She worked with new energy. Using her medical scanner, she mapped her own neural patterns and compared them to the king's. The differences were startling. Look at this, she said to Yunji. Human brains process information in parallel streams. Kithaeron brains use sequential patterns. The plague exploits your sequential processing, moving from one function to the next. But human brains can isolate the infection. Ji-Eun finished. We can contain it in one area while the rest of the brain adapts. She prepared a treatment plan unlike anything the Kithaerons had tried. Instead of attacking the plague directly, she would teach the king's brain to think more like a human's. This is theoretical at best, Yunji warned. You could damage his mind beyond repair. He's dying anyway, Ji-Eun said. Your Majesty, I need your permission to try something radical. The king studied her for a long moment, then wrote, I trust you. Ji-Eun attached sensors to the king's head and her own. She would use her neural patterns as a template, creating new pathways in his brain. This might hurt, she warned. The king managed a weak smile and wrote, Pain means I'm still alive. Ji-Eun activated the neural interface. Energy flowed between their minds, creating bridges where none had existed before. She felt the king's thoughts touching hers, alien, yet strangely familiar. Images flashed through their connected minds. She saw the history of Kithaeria, the discovery of the ancient message, the first victims of the plague. She felt the king's loneliness, his burden of being the last of his line. And he saw her memories, Earth's blue skies, her medical training, her determination to heal regardless of species or origin. Hours passed. Sweat beaded on Ji-Eun's forehead as she guided the king's brain through new configurations. Yunji monitored their vital signs, ready to break the connection if needed. Then something shifted. The king's neural patterns began to stabilize. The plague's progression slowed, then stopped. Ji-Eun opened her eyes, exhausted but hopeful. The king was looking at her with wonder. He opened his mouth and spoke a single word. How? Yunji gasped. His voice! The plague always takes the voice permanently. Ji-Eun smiled weakly. Not anymore. Your Majesty, how do you feel? Different, the king said, his voice rough but clear. I can think around the plague now, like water flowing around a stone. Word spread quickly through the palace. The human had given the king his voice back. Hope flickered in the crystal towers for the first time in years, but Ji-Eun knew this was just the beginning. The treatment is temporary, she explained to the excited healers who crowded into the chamber. The plague is still there, contained but not cured. We need the crown of silence for a permanent solution. General Jae-won pushed through the crowd. Your Majesty, the council demands to see you. They don't believe the reports. King Yunho stood slowly, supported by Ji-Eun. Then I will show them. And I will tell them what must be done. As they prepared to face the council, the king squeezed Ji-Eun's hand. You have given me more than my voice, he said. You have given me hope. But the hardest part lies ahead. What do you mean? Ji-Hyun asked. The king's expression was grave. The crown of silence doesn't just require human neural patterns to activate. It requires a human to wear it, and wearing it may cost you everything. Ji-Eun felt a chill run down her spine, but she nodded. I came here to help, whatever it takes. Together, they walked toward the council chamber, where the fate of an empire would be decided. The crystal towers of Cytheria gleamed under 3 purple suns. Once, these towers sang with the voices of millions. Now, they stood silent as graves. Ji-Eun pressed her face against the transport window, watching the alien city grow larger. She had traveled for 6 months across the galaxy to reach this dying world. Her stomach felt tight with worry. She was just a nurse from Earth, but somehow, she had become the last hope for an empire. First time seeing Cytheria? Asked Captain Min-sun from the pilot seat. Yes, Ji-Eun whispered. It's beautiful. It was more beautiful before the plague, Min-sun said sadly. 10 years ago you could hear the crystal spires singing from orbit. Now listen. Ji-Eun listened. She heard nothing but the hum of their ship's engines. The transport landed on a platform high above the city. Tall aliens in white robes waited for them. Their skin was pale blue, and their eyes were large and silver. These were the Kithrans, one of the oldest species in the galaxy. Welcome, human healer, said the tallest alien. His voice sounded like wind chimes. I am Subin, royal physician to His Majesty. We are grateful you have come, though I fear it is too late. Ji-Eun bowed, as she had been taught. I will do everything I can to help. Subin's silver eyes looked doubtful. Many have tried. The silent death takes all who rule. 20 kings have fallen. King Yunho is the last of his line. They walked through corridors made of living crystal. The walls pulsed with soft light. But Ji-Eun noticed dark patches spreading like disease through the crystal itself. Even the palace was dying. Tell me about the plague, Ji-Eun said. It strikes our leaders first, Subin explained. The victim loses their voice within days. Then their thoughts become confused. Finally, their mind dies, followed by their body. No medicine works, no prayer helps. How long has King Yunho been sick? 7 days. He can no longer speak. Ji-Eun felt her heart sink. 7 days was already late stage, but she had not traveled this far to give up. They entered a vast chamber. The ceiling stretched so high that clouds formed near the top. In the center of the room stood a bed made of singing crystal, though now it was silent. On the bed lay the king. Ji-Eun had studied pictures of Kithrans, but King Yunho still surprised her. He was as tall as 2 humans, with skin the color of dawn sky. His face was elegant and alien, with high cheekbones and eyes that held the wisdom of centuries. But those eyes were dim with sickness. Your Majesty, Subin said, bowing low. The human healer has arrived. The king tried to speak. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. His hands shook with frustration. Ji-Eun stepped forward. Your Majesty, I am Ji-Eun from Earth. I'm here to help you. She placed her medical bag on a crystal table and began pulling out her equipment. The Kythran healers watched with curiosity and doubt. What are those primitive devices? Asked a young healer named Yoonji. Human medical tools, Ji-Eun replied. Sometimes simple methods work when complex ones fail. She approached the king slowly. May I examine you, Your Majesty? The king nodded weakly. Ji-Eun placed her hand on his forehead. His skin felt cool and smooth like polished stone. She checked his pulse, though she had to search to find it. Kythran, hearts beat in a different rhythm than human ones. The plague attacks your neural pathways, she said, thinking out loud. But human brains work differently. We process signals in patterns your species doesn't use. Subin scoffed. You think human medicine can succeed where our technology has failed? We have devices that can map every cell, every atom in the body. And yet your king is still dying, Ji-Eun said gently. Sometimes the answer isn't in technology. Sometimes It's an understanding. She noticed the king watching her intently. Despite his weakness, his eyes showed sharp intelligence. Your Majesty, I know you cannot speak, but can you write? The king's eyes brightened. Yunji quickly brought a digital tablet. With shaking hands, the king wrote, "You are different from the others." How so? Jion asked. You look at me, not through me. You see a person, not just a disease. Jion smiled sadly. In human medicine, we have a saying, treat the patient, not just the illness. The others gave up before they began. Their faces showed defeat. I haven't given up, Ji-yoon said firmly, and I won't. Over the following hours, Ji-yoon examined the king with both human and Kithaeron instruments. She studied his brain patterns, his cellular structure, and his energy fields. The Kithaeron healers watched, some with skepticism, others with growing interest. Look at this, Ji-yoon said, pointing to a scan. The plague creates specific patterns in your neural tissue. It's like a code being written into your brain. We know this, Subin said impatiently. But we cannot break the code. Because you're trying to erase it, Ji-yoon explained. What if instead we try to rewrite it? Human brains adapt constantly. We might be able to teach your neural pathways a new pattern. The king wrote on his tablet, You speak of the plague as if it has intelligence. Maybe it does, Ji-yoon said, or maybe it was designed that way. The room fell silent. Even Subin looked shocked. Designed, Yoonji whispered. But who would create such a weapon? The king's face changed. He wrote quickly, There are secrets about the plague. Secrets only the royal family knows. I must tell someone before I die. You're not going to die, Ji-yoon said, though she wasn't sure she believed it. But tell me these secrets. They might help me save you. The king hesitated, then wrote, The crown of silence holds the answer, but it requires something no Kithaeron possesses. Before he could write more, alarms began ringing throughout the palace. General Jae-won burst into the chamber, his military uniform crackling with energy. Your Majesty, 3 more worlds have reported plague outbreaks. The disease is spreading faster than ever before. The king slumped back, exhausted. Subin turned to Ji-yoon with desperation in his silver eyes. Human, if you have any wisdom from your world, now is the time to share. The king is our last hope. If he dies, the empire dies with him. Ji-yoon looked around the chamber at the fearful faces of aliens who had ruled the stars when humanity was still learning to make fire. They had technology beyond Earth's dreams, power beyond imagining. Yet here they stood, helpless before a disease that attacked the very thing that made them great, their minds. She thought of Earth, so far away. She thought of the trust placed in her. She thought of the king, fighting to stay conscious, fighting to share crucial secrets before the plague silenced him forever. I need 3 things, Ji-yoon said, her voice steady despite her fear. First, complete access to all medical records about the plague. Second, a sample of healthy Kithaeron neural tissue for comparison. And third, she paused, meeting the king's eyes. I need to know everything about the crown of silence. The king managed a weak nod. He wrote one more message. You may be our salvation, Ji-yoon of Earth, or you may be our final witness. Either way, I am glad you're here. As the sun set through the crystal walls, painting the chamber in shades of purple and gold, Ji-yoon began her work. She didn't know if she could save the king. She didn't know if she could stop the plague. But she knew she would not give up. In the silence of the dying palace, her determination burned like a small, bright star.